Have you ever thought about trying to disappear? That's probably something that most of us just don't really consider as an option. But maybe you find yourself in a very rare occasion that you just have to do this. And just for informational purposes, I'm just going to talk about it. I have no plans on doing this, of course, and you probably don't either. But what would it take to actually disappear? You know, I guess it would also matter what and who you're disappearing from. Is it from the law or the government or from gangsters or drug dealers or from family members? Who are you trying to just become invisible to, and why would you really want to start a new life? So if you're going to do this, though, after you identify why you're doing this, uh, you're going to have to look at the preparations involved, which are extensive, very time consuming, and you're going to need a lot of resources to pull this off. So you're probably going to want to start several years in advance if that's possible for you. Now, not everyone has a few years to prepare for a disappearance. You may only have a few months. But in those few months, you want to learn what is legal and what is not legal in terms of how are you going to disappear. You can disappear in most places of the world legally, at least in by most laws. So disappearing typically is not a legal issue. It's just how you go about it. If you stage your death, that's typically not legal. Um, there's a lot of things that kind of are problematic. For example, and this is pretty obvious, but you can't just steal someone else's identity just to start over or, to be part of your plan of disappearing. So legal problems there you want to avoid. You also want to start to distance yourself, though, during this process early on from other people that you associate with, friends and family mainly, and even coworkers. A lot of times, people that we work with become friends, and it could be problematic if they start looking for us. And so you want to start cutting ties with those people that you know, and you also want to start to withdraw from a lot of other areas in your life. It could be online, just who you talk to online. It could be social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It could be that you start to delete some of your email accounts. You start taking cash out of your bank accounts and retirement accounts, start to use cash only. You start to get rid of your debit and credit cards over time. If you have a PayPal account, you just take, the cash out, if you will, and close the account. You start to get rid of your pets if you have some. It's obviously going to be a lot easier to disappear by yourself when you don't have pets to deal with, and if you don't have a family to deal with. If you do have a family, it's going to be very, very difficult, especially if you have kids, just to disappear. In fact, probably the average person is just not going to be able to do such. But if you're by yourself and you're dedicated to do this, you could probably pull it off if you have the means and the patience. But you're going to have to really research this and have a really detailed plan. So just before you disappear, you'd probably want to quit your job so you don't raise suspicions of where you are. You probably want to make sure you're not involved with any type of lease so that you don't break a lease and you don't have all these problems. You probably want to pay off all your debts before you disappear. Basically, you want to be as legal as possible. If you have a vehicle, you probably want to sell it. If you have identification that you don't want to use anymore, probably want to destroy it. You probably want to gather up all your pictures and figure out what you're going to do with them. There's a lot of things to consider here. When you do move, where are you going to move? Some people say go in a rural environment, but if you go to a rural environment, you might stand out because no one knows you there, and new people stick out in places that are more isolated. So you might be better off to go to a very busy large city, and within the first few years to move around a few times just to make it that much more difficult if someone is trying to find you you have a lot more um, difficulty in doing that. So that's just what I would probably consider as a pretty interesting option to go to a large city. You can get lost in a large city pretty well, especially if you stay real low key. And if you have a savings to get you through maybe like a year or more of your living costs, or expenses, you can really hunker down and just kind of disappear in a lot of ways. Um, Other things to consider would be to change your personal appearance, wear clothes that you normally don't wear so you don't stand out or look identifiable, dye your hair. Of course, try to keep it natural looking. Protect your face from cameras, any type of hat, especially brimmed hats are going to probably be better to conceal your facial features, develop new mannerisms, find out ways to conceal your older ones. Uh, Basically, just make yourself a stranger, you know, um, to even yourself. Just kind of make yourself not noticeable and stay low profile. Act as normal as those around you in your new environment. Um, Traveling can be a bit tricky though, because depending on your identification situation, you may not be able to fly if you destroyed your old IDs. And especially if you have illegal IDs, you probably don't want to be caught in the airport. Big problems. You probably want to just stick with buses and trams and trains, things like that. If you do go the legal route and you just simply change your name, um, you could have a legal driver's license and have a vehicle. Just be mindful of the kind of vehicle that you're driving. I'd probably purchase something that would probably not be that obvious or suspicious to people that you've known in your past life. So overall, I'd say the further away from your previous life, your previous living situation, the better. And you know, it's something that this could be pretty difficult at first, I would imagine. You're probably going to have some grief issues and probably going to feel lonely and sad because you're going to be missing the people that you've had all your life. Um, but if you're going to make this work, you don't want to go around and go to places that you were before. You don't want to talk about, who you were in your past life to other people. Um, you want to create a new identity. And this requires changes in your mannerisms, character, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and ideas. Uh, the old you needs to disappear, and you need to look at yourself as maybe like an actor, for example, and develop a character profile, a history to fall back on when talking to others in new places. Learn to naturally answer questions such as where did you come from? Where did you go before you coming here? Where is your family from? What kind of food do you like? What type of hobbies do you get into? What kind of education do you have? Favorite sports, favorite authors, music, things like that. You get the point. And there's nothing wrong with making new friends and having new friends with the locals, neighbors. Maybe if you have a new job, that's going to be good because you'll create uh, a a person that would be an alibi to someone that may be looking for you. You can always use them, or if someone runs into these people asking if they know you, they can definitely tell that they don't because they know a different you. So that's going to be very helpful. And I would also say that, look at your talents and skills that haven't been developed in your previous life and use that as also another means to create a new career. Because typically we have more than one capability, more than one interest, more than one line of talent. So we need to kind of tap into that. I think that in developing countries, it's going to be probably the best option if you want to leave the country you're in. Developing countries typically don't have the same infrastructure and the rigid requirements to move around without ID. So that's an option, but I think for a lot of people, you wouldn't stick out as much if you just stayed in your own country because you already know the language and you probably will blend in with the locals because you look like the locals. Now, here in America, depending on where you go in the country, you may stand out more than others. So just be mindful of how you look comparative to everyone around you. And it's obviously if you can speak the same language, that's a big bonus. Yeah, I wouldn't steal someone's identity. There's other ways to deal with that, but you kind of have to just figure out how legal you want this to be and the process you're going to take. I think that I'd probably just change my name and just move far away and make it difficult for others to find me. What do you think about this? As always, thanks for your ongoing support. Hopefully, this was interesting. I'll catch you later.